Hey there again from Central Virginia. Make compost. Make compost. Just make compost. You don't have to be perfect. It does not have to be a perfect ratio. Any organic material is going to eventually break down and turn into compost. If you want it super fast, then you've got to make a hot compost pile. I can rarely achieve that, so I just go ahead and add what I can into my piles. This is my compost operation behind me. It ain't pretty, but that certainly does the trick. And you can check out my compost playlist, which is at I'll put a link at the end of the video, and it'll take you to all of my videos on compost so far. So I thought I'd just show you like a couple of different methods that you can use to make your compost. It ain't rocket science, and never think that something that you can buy is better than something that you can make yourself at home. You just have to have a little space and a little bit of time. I do most of mine in these just makeshift compost bins that I've made out of pallets. Pallets are cheap and readily available. You do want to search for ones that have the marking of HT, which means heat treated, not chemically treated. And personally, I just think that's better when you're working around food and things like that. I have made a pile of compost here, and you can just see I keep it sort of just enclosed, and it's got different layers. This is going to be a hot pile, and you can see that we put some nasty, gnarly, old, rotting down cardboard on top. That helps to sort of hold the heat in. We'll be turning this pile frequently. Now, this over here is a pile I just started yesterday, and I simply am using fencing, galvanized wire fencing, and it's in a big circle, and it can be moved around. Now, what is in here? You'll see layers. I was pulling out tomatoes. I've been liberating my garden of all the huge volunteer cherry tomato vines that have sprouted up and are taking over the universe, and I finally decided I'd pull them. And so I have a lot of green material here, but I'm interlaying it with old hay. This is some of my old rotten, spoiled hay. This hay delivery came in early June, and so it's been sitting out since early June, so I think it's ready to be able to be used. What you're going to do is simply layer up greens and browns. Now, if I were really industrious, I'd be chopping this stuff into smaller bits, but honestly, I don't have time to do that right now, and I'm just throwing it in. Is it okay to put leaves that are maybe plants that have a little bit of fungus or something like that on them? And that's controversial, but I will tell you that I do it, and I think that it's perfectly okay. This thing's kind of in my way, and I know that it's going to create a flower which will drop seed and put it in here, so I'm just throwing that in as well. All right, I got a layer of green. Now I'm just going to take some of my hay, and what I will do is sort of pull it apart and fluff it up a little bit. You want air to go into your compost pile, and you want some water. And I got to tell you, this year water has not been a problem because we've had so much rain this summer. But if we didn't have rain, then I would come in and I'd just water the pile maybe once a week. But I haven't had to do that this year. All right, so there you go. That's a layer right in there. And as I clean out the rest of my garden, I'll just pull more and continue to build this pile. It's going to fill it all the way up, and you'll be surprised how quickly it'll go way down. So how long is it going to take this pile that I'm just making now today, this week, turn into compost? When will I be able to use it? I don't anticipate that this is going to be what's called a hot pile. Hot piles you have to really manage much more carefully, and you have to pay a lot of attention to the ratio of greens and browns, although it's not as precise as some people make it out to be. But you want a good mixture, and you also want to make sure that you toss it and fluff it up pretty often, especially as it's heating up. All compost is going to heat up, but a cold compost pile is one that's going to be less than, say, 130 degrees, 125, 130 degrees. That means it's not instantly going to burn off all of the weed seeds and things like that. Rather, this is just going to take a long time to compost down. It takes some time, but it's certainly not hard. And if you're just want some compost and you're not saying I got to have it in 6 weeks or something like that, I would say this compost pile probably will compost down completely and be ready to use by maybe mid-summer next year. I might get lucky and it might be ready earlier than that. You just don't know. But I have other piles that are going and that will get going in a hot way that will be usable next spring. Another thing that you can do with your weeds, especially if you're worried about roots of pernicious weeds and seeds and things like that, when you're weeding. We just had a massive weeding of the back porch flower garden, which had a whole lot of stuff in there that shouldn't have been in there. And we were just out in there pulling stuff out, and we had a huge wheelbarrow full of weeds. And so I made what I call a stinky bucket. A stinky bucket is something, if you have a tender nose, you don't want to make, but you can make a fantastic liquid feed fertilizer for your garden in about 2 weeks. All you got to do is this. Here's what I call my stinky bucket, and I started this a couple days ago with some weeds. Be ready. I have a rock on top, and I have all of these weeds that are underneath the water. Now I'm coming in here, I'm sticking, I should have used my gloves. I got to put a little bit more water in here because those weeds are above. I can take a stick and just poke it down in there. But in about a week's time, 2 weeks' time, this will turn into a very stinky, very smelly, and very rich liquid fertilizer. And although it's a great liquid fertilizer, you absolutely don't want to use it straight. What you do when that's ready, in about 2 weeks I'll probably do this, is I'll strain that into the liquid into another bucket, and I will use that at a ratio of about 10 to 1. So that it's going to go a long way. But I'll just continue to make new stinky buckets of liquid feed as I go along. I use a variety of plants, and because I think the variety of plants is going to give you a very diverse set of nutrients to go back into your garden. So it's just another way that you can compost and use your weeds to your advantage, and any other vegetation. And this is yet another area of compost right behind my house. Here's another bin. This was actually my very, very first compost bin. And I use this. I just let it sit. And you can see that I put a lot of, when I'm pulling out and digging out dirt, if I'm doing a new bed or an area, I just put everything right in there. And that turns into a lovely, lush, compostable, crumbly material. But I want to show you one other thing, and I'm not going to open it up, because I believe in composting and trying to reduce as much waste as possible. And this device is called a green cone, and this is fantastic because it enables you to actually get rid of a lot of household waste that otherwise would not go into your compost pile. Bones, meat, milk, dairy, all sorts of stuff like that can go into this green cone. Now, the material is underground. You have to dig a big, huge hole, which in this area was not easy. It kind of looks like a giant laundry basket. And this solar cone fits right over top of it. And basically what happens is the sun heats up this cone, this green cone, and you get a lovely, it just is going to decay over time. The material is underground. So that is a few easy ways to get rid of your waste material from the garden and from the house. With very, very little expense and a lot of savings, both in things that go into the landfill, and you don't have to buy compost. Thank you so much for watching. Get composting.